Every time Max flips on that supercharger, he is activating a prop that never worked. A dummy bolted to the hood. Made for $380,000 Australian dollars, Mad Max held the Guinness World Record for 20 years. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in Mad Max. Number 20. Every viewer assumes the roof-mounted supercharger on the Pursuit Special is the heart of the car. It is the machine's defining detail, the visual promise of raw mechanical power. It never worked. The Weiand 671 supercharger was a dummy bolted to the hood and never connected to the engine. Art director John Dowding and fabricator GraphX International installed it purely for visual impact, because a real belt-driven roots blower cannot be cinematically switched on and off. Only 2 of the 8-side exhaust pipes were functional. The dummies vibrated from the resonance of the live ones. Watch any scene where Max activates the blower. What looks like unleashed mechanical fury is entirely a performance built around a non-working prop. If the car was fake, how much else was? Number 19. The Pursuit Special's aggressive fiberglass nose cone is instantly recognizable. It looks like a custom race design built specifically for the film. It was not. Designer Peter Arcadipane created that nose cone originally for a Ford Australia show van during the 1970s vanning craze. Miller and producer Byron Kennedy adopted it because bespoke design was unaffordable. The roof and boot spoilers came from a Bob J. Monaro sports sedan sourced by Errol Platt. The entire car was built for under 20,000 Australian dollars, starting from a repossessed white 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT hardtop bought at a Frankston auction. Look closely at the nose profile. The lineage of a 1970 show van is there if you know what you are seeing, and what happened to this car after filming is a story of its own. Number 18. The Nightrider opens the film announcing himself as a driver of something unstoppable. The car reads as a machine of pure power from the first frame. It was a 1972 Holden HQ Monaro, base model with a straight-six engine and a 4-speed manual. No V8, the production bought it in mint condition from an elderly couple and deliberately ground it against guardrails to create a battered appearance. Stunt coordinator Grant Page was physically wedged between actor Vince Gil and his passenger during portions of the opening chase because Gil had taken only 16 driving lessons before filming began. Watch the Nightrider chase and notice the car's actual handling. The compensated driving of a nearly untrained actor is hidden inside every tight corner. That crash was built on even stranger decisions. Number 17. The Nightrider's climactic crash looks like a spectacular controlled stunt. It was anything but. Pyrotechnician Chris Murray installed a real Rodinga booster rocket, sourced from the Maribyrnong munitions factory, into the boot of the car after the engine was removed. The rocket stunt overshot its target by roughly 400 meters, coming close enough to endanger cinematographer David Egby. The final on-screen crash was assembled from 2 separate events, the rocket run and a cable-pulled car detonated into the pileup. Editor Tony Patterson joined them into one sequence. Watch the crash and look for the shift in the car's trajectory and the lighting change between cuts. Both edits are visible if you pause at the right moment, and on-screen mistakes go far deeper than that crash. Number 16. The beach sequence feels seamless. The family arrives, the holiday begins, the van appears. Pause during the beach scene and watch the footwear across successive shots. Jesse wears sneakers or sandals walking toward Max, sheepskin-trimmed boots around the van, and deck shoes heading to the water. 3 different pairs across one continuous scene. The wire pulling Bubba Zanetti off his motorcycle is visible in one shot. The camera operator's feet reflect in Goose's sunglasses during the interrogation scene. Cinematographer David Egby acknowledged these gaps in the Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray commentary and made no apologies for them. When the action works, it does not matter. Rewatch the beach sequence and count the footwear changes yourself. Every one of them is there in the frame. Number 15. The moment Toe Cutter sees the truck approaching is one of the film's most iconic images. The semi-trailer driver refused to risk damaging his rig. The art department fabricated a painted sheet metal shield mimicking the truck's grille and headlights, and mounted it to the vehicle's front. Director George Miller confirmed this publicly in 2015. Pause the final approach shot and look at the corner of the grille. The seam between the real truck and the painted facade is visible in that frame. The eye bulge was a separate studio insert using a latex facial rig of actor Hugh Keays-byrne with spring-loaded eyeballs. Every element of that sequence was something other than what it appeared to be, and the same is true of almost everything in this film. Number 14, the opening chase's caravan jump is the film's first genuinely jaw-dropping moment. Stunt coordinator Grant Page performed that jump with a broken leg, having checked himself out of hospital 3 to 4 days after a crash that also injured original Jessie actress Rosie Bailey. Page designed the ramp himself from a dismantled cattle yard, removed the camera side wall of the caravan, and hung a loose saucepan inside that shattered the windscreen on impact. Miller told IndieWire in 2024 that without Grant Page, Mad Max would not exist. Watch the caravan jump and look at the angle of the driver's body entering frame. The adjusted posture of someone managing physical limitation is visible in the approach. And the man behind the camera had his own limitations to work around. Number 13. The MFP uniforms read as the costume of a serious institutional force. Costume designer Claire Griffin had budget for exactly one genuine leather uniform across the entire cast. Every other uniform was a vinyl knockoff. In HD releases, the cracks in the vinyl revealing white fabric backing are visible in multiple shots. The shoulder caps were reportedly cut from a baseball helmet, painted black, and riveted to the vinyl with 10 to 12 silver rivets per uniform. Pause any close quarters confrontation in a high-resolution transfer and look at the knee area of Max's uniform. The fabric failure is there in frame across every fight scene. What reads as institutional authority was improvised from the cheapest available materials. And the world those uniforms were meant to represent was invented for exactly the same reason. Number 12. The dystopian near-future setting of Mad Max feels like a bold, creative vision, a deliberately constructed world of collapse and abandonment. Miller revealed at CinemaCon 2024 that the future setting was a financial constraint, not a creative one. Action sequences in contemporary Melbourne required permits and coordination costs the production could not afford. Empty highways and derelict buildings were available for nothing. The abandoned South Melbourne gasworks became the halls of justice. The disused Spotswood pumping station provided the interiors. According to the National Film and Sound Archive's 2006 interview with Miller, the genre that shaped decades of post-apocalyptic cinema was invented because the present was too expensive to film. Watch any wide establishing shot of the empty road environment. Every frame of that emptiness was an economy that became a language. Number 11. Mad Max's visual identity reads as a deliberate aesthetic signature. Cinematographer David Egby shot the entire film with a single surviving lens from a damaged set of Todd AO, anamorphic glass that director Sam Peckinpah had discarded in Australia after the getaway in 1972. The 35mm was the only piece still functional. Egby told Sci-Fi Now the glass was slow and needed constant recalibration. The film became one of the first Australian features shot in anamorphic widescreen because of a lens someone else discarded. Miller later said people complimented his deliberate visual choices. There was no choice. Watch the opening chase and notice the softness of the frame edges. That quality came from one abandoned lens, and the man operating it did so at extraordinary speed. Number 10. The story is widely repeated. Mel Gibson arrived at the Mad Max audition with facial injuries from a brawl, was photographed as a villain candidate, and returned 3 weeks later as a leading man with a healed face. Both Miller and casting director Mitch Matthews have explicitly denied this story in multiple retrospective interviews. Gibson was summoned from NIDA alongside his classmate and flatmate Steve Bisley, who read for Goose. Gibson's only prior film credit was Summer City in 1977, for which he earned $400 Australian dollars. Mad Max paid him $15,000 Australian dollars, less than half the cost of building the Pursuit special. Miller has said he simply believed in what he saw immediately. The legend of the bruised face is more durable than the truth. And the truth about Toe Cutter's casting is equally surprising. Number 9. Hugh Keays-Byrne commands every scene as Toe Cutter with the authority of someone who has performed on the largest stages in the world. Keays-Byrne was a Royal Shakespeare Company member from 1968 to 1972 who toured Australia with director Peter Brook's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream in 1973. The production had no budget to fly cast from Sydney to Melbourne. Keays-Byrne rode 885 kilometers down the coast road in full costume over 3 days, accompanied by members of the real Victorian motorcycle club, the Vigilantes, who played most of Toe Cutter's gang. He modeled the character on historical accounts of Genghis Khan and deliberately varied his accent from scene to suggest psychological instability. Watch any Toe Cutter scene and listen for the accent shifts. And his co-stars were not strangers to each other. Number 8. The chemistry between Toe Cutter, Fee-Fi, and Nightrider feels organic from their first shared moments. They move like members of a world with a shared history. Keays-Byrne, actor Roger Ward, and actor Vincent Gil had all appeared together previously in director Sandy Harbutt's 1974 Australian biker film Stone. Their casting together in Mad Max was a deliberate homage. Ward shaved his entire head to win the Fifi role and entered the audition bald. Tim Burns, who played Johnny the Boy, wrote his lines on large sheets of paper around his King's Cross apartment to rehearse. Watch any scene where these three share the frame, and you are watching a reunion of a pre-existing ensemble operating as if they had always belonged to this world. The production's vehicle fleet had a similar hidden history. Number 7. The moment the pursuit cruiser smashes the blue van on the open road is fast, loud, and apparently straightforward. The van was based on Miller's own Mazda Bongo, the car he used during his medical career. The vehicle actually destroyed was a second engineless Bongo sourced from a scrapyard and repainted to match. The paint cans visible on its roof were filled with milk rather than paint. Miller and Kennedy personally swept broken glass off public roads after each filming day because the crew had no budget for permits or cleanup contractors. Watch the van impact and look at the liquid spraying from the roof cans on contact. What looks like paint is milk, and the production's approach to every budget line was just as inventive. Number 6. The Mad Max score creates tension in scenes that might otherwise read as quieter. Composer Brian May, the Australian film composer and not the Queen guitarist, was hired after Miller and Kennedy heard 2 cues from his score for director Richard Franklin's 1978 film, Patrick at a Dinner Party. May told CinemaScore magazine in 1983 that Miller specifically wanted music that would make viewers uncomfortable, with notes deliberately running against dialogue to induce discomfort. The score won the 1979 AFI Award for Best Original Music Score. Watch any dialogue scene in the film's second half and listen for the moments where the music directly conflicts with the emotional tone on screen. The frustration is precise and intentional. The film's American distributors took a very different approach to the entire audio design. Number 5. American audiences watching Mad Max on its 1980 US theatrical release were watching a different film from the Australian original. American International Pictures contracted Titan Productions, a Manhattan dubbing house, to replace essentially every principal voice with American accents. The only voices not redubbed were the Sugartown cabaret singer, Charlie speaking through his mechanical voice box, and Goose singing to himself in his truck before the ambush. Documented substitutions include Oi, replaced with Hey, Windscreen with Windshield, and Very Toey with Super Hot. Producer Samuel Z. Arkoff confirmed in his autobiography that Gibson, who was born in the United States, remained in Australia and did not participate in the sessions. The original Australian mono mix did not appear on US home video until the Kino Lorber 4K release in November 2020. Number 4. Mad Max was banned in New Zealand on the 9th of August 1979 after the film's censorship board cited a real incident involving gang members who attempted to place a senior sergeant inside a burning vehicle. The board ruled the film could cause gang activity injurious to the public good. Miller flew to New Zealand to testify and lost. The ban lifted only in April 1983 after Mad Max 2's international success. Sweden's ban was not lifted until 2005. The British Board of Film Classification cut 48 seconds for the UK release in 1979, and those cuts remained in some releases as late as 1986. Watch the scene involving Goose's vehicle knowing a real court used it as justification for suppression. And the name at the center of this story carries its own hidden meaning. Number 3. The name Max Rokitansky reads as a hard, functional action hero name. It is also a doctor's private joke hidden across every film in the franchise. Miller named the character after Baron Karl von Rokitansky, the 19th century Bohemian pathologist who pioneered the modern autopsy organ removal procedure. He told The Guardian that medical school was inseparable from his filmmaking, connecting how doctors shift between close examination and wide view to his use of close-up and wide shots. Co-writer James McCausland, then the Melbourne finance editor of The Australian, appears on screen as the bearded man in an apron outside the diner, paid roughly $3,500 Australian dollars for a year's work. Every time you hear the name Rokitansky, you are hearing a reference to the science of examining what remains after something living has ended. Number 2. The post-apocalyptic world of Mad Max feels like a fully realized creative vision, a society already past its breaking point. Miller confirmed at CinemaCon 2024 that the dystopian setting was a financial decision, not a creative one. Action in contemporary Melbourne required permits, road closures, and coordination the production could not afford. Empty public highways and abandoned buildings cost nothing to film. The derelict South Melbourne Gasworks became the halls of justice. The closed Spotswood pumping station provided courtyard interiors. According to Miller's 2006 interview recorded by the National Film and Sound Archive, the genre that influenced decades of post-apocalyptic cinema was invented entirely because the present was too expensive. Watch any wide road shot and understand that every frame of that emptiness was a budget line, not a vision. Number 1. Mad Max held the Guinness World Record for highest box office to budget ratio for 20 years until the Blair Witch Project broke it in 1999. The roughly $380,000 budget was raised from approximately 30 private investors via a prospectus that Miller and Kennedy personally mimeographed and hand-delivered. Miller and Kennedy moonlighted as a two-man emergency medical service for 3 months to fund early production. The film was shot on one discarded lens with a stunt coordinator performing on a broken leg, uniforms that tore on camera, a supercharger that never worked, and paint cans filled with milk. Watch the opening chase again, knowing every frame was filmed without a permit, swept clean by the director himself each night, with one lens and no margin for error. Mad Max looked like a confident action film. It was built by a doctor sweeping glass off public roads, a stuntman on a broken leg, and a single lens someone else threw away. Every detail changes what you see when you watch it. Which hidden detail surprised you most? And what film should we open next?